Giants, Seahawks. Going through what y'all need to know to make some money on this bitch. So first, let's do the picks real quick. This game is in Seattle, so the Seahawks are favored by 10.5, and we got an over/under set at 47. So I'm actually, I think the strongest bet in this game is the under 47. I don't love that, but I think it's fine. And as far as the spread goes, there ain't no chance in hell you can take the Seahawks minus 10.5 here. They just, as a rule, the Seahawks do not blow out teams no matter how good or bad they are. They do too many dumb things. So if anything, I would actually be on the Giants plus 10.5. Now I wouldn't bet on that either, right? Because you're betting on Colt McCoy versus Russell Wilson, but that's definitely the side I would be on. And although I will say, for sure, money line Seahawks are going to win this game, so that's safe. So stick around. I'll tell you how and why this will go down. So the first step here, we got Giants offense versus Seahawks defense. As far as injuries go, big one on the Giants side. Daniel Jones classified doubtful, not going to play. So we're looking at Colt McCoy at quarterback. And on the Seahawks side, no Trey Flowers, one of their two remaining starting outside corners. And Carlos Dunlap also listed as questionable. I think he's going to play at this point. I don't necessarily care if he doesn't. So first step, we got offensive line versus defensive line. So looks like the Giants last week, they stuck with Shane Lemieux as their starter at their left guard spot, and they rotated in Will Hernandez, who had just come back off of IR. So we'll see who actually plays the most in this game. I hope they leave Lemieux in. I think he's better marginally. There's not a huge difference between them, and although I'm going to assume they rotate them again. So on the interior, the Seahawks interior line, Puna Ford, Jaron Reed, and now they got Snacks Harrison back up in the NFL. They aren't great by any means, but they do hold the point of attack reasonably, especially Puna Ford and Snacks. And you're going to see that the Giants have a really weak interior offensive line, especially Nick Gates and Kevin Zeitler. Neither of them are really useful run blockers. Um, Especially Nick Gates. Zeitler at least can do a little bit up and down the line, like good feet and stuff like that. But you're going to see that they're not going to generate very much control or push to the line of scrimmage, if any at all, from those spots. And at tackle, it's really the same thing. I mean, Andrew Thomas has been a disappointing rookie for sure, more so in pass protection. And he's just kind of a mediocre run blocker at this point. Maybe he has tools to get better than I think he will, but as of right now, not special. And Cam Fleming's terrible, the other tackle. And the Seahawks defensive ends, they have their own issues, but the guys they run out, they're actually good run defenders. It's like LJ Collier, Benson Mayowa, Alton Robinson, all guys that I actually think play the run as edges pretty well, as well as if Carlos Dunlap is in a rundowns, I think he's not awful either. So you're talking about just a real lack of any notable push to the line, but I think in the interior they're going to be a little bit okay, just because the Seahawks aren't good enough to destroy any chance at movement. So the second level, Seahawks linebackers outstanding. Bobby Wagner's still really good. KJ Wright's still really good, especially as run defenders. And you'll see that in this game, they're going to be free to do basically whatever they want. Giants offensive linemen are not good at the second level outside of like Kevin Gates. I don't get tired. Nick Gates and Kevin Zeitler are whatever, mediocre at the second level, but nothing better than that. And neither of them are going to be A, past the line of scrimmage enough to really affect them, and B, once they get there, not good enough to contain Bobby Wagner, or KJ Wright. So they're going to be free, and that just creates an overall game that's bad. The Giants are not going to be able to run the ball this game. They normally can't anyway, but here it's going to be, just as bad as it is against teams with better front sevens, because normally Seahawks front seven not crazy, but here, I'm telling you, the linebackers can clean up everything, and there's not enough room at the offense at the line of scrimmage to make up for it. So you talk about the pass game, pass rush first. Now here, Seahawks still have a bad pass rush, but this is the second week in a row where I think their pass rush is going to be reasonable. We saw last week against the Eagles that they were okay, and I think that's about what you're going to get here. Again, Cam Fleming, the Giants right tackle, terrible, and Carlos Dunlap or Benson Mayowa, mostly Dunlap, are good enough to create pressure. It's not going to be consistent. Neither of them are good enough to be consistent pressure creators, but they're going to be okay. On the other edge, Andrew Thomas, like I said, really vulnerable, especially to inside moves from like kind of bigger, stronger edges. And here, LJ Collier, Benson Mayowa, not good, but they fit that description of the types of players that Andrew Thomas has been losing to. we'll see. I'm not necessarily going to put that on them right now, but I'm not going to say that his edge is going to be clean either at all. And on the interior, Jaron Reed, reasonable interior pass rusher, not crazy, but he's good enough again. Nick Gates is going to get shoved back in the pocket a ton in this game. He does every game. And Kevin Zeitler can get beat too, although he's not so bad at that. So you're talking about a little bit of interior pressure and like some edge pressure, but I don't want to overrate it because the Seahawks still aren't good as a rushing team. So you talk about the receivers versus the corners. So without Trey Flowers, one of the Seahawks starting corners, I'm going to go ahead and run with the idea they're going to start DJ Reed on the other outside spot. That's what they did when Shaquille Griffin missed time a couple weeks ago, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And now that he's back, he's going to be on one side. It'll be, I think, DJ Reed on the other, and Ugo Amadi in the slot. So Shaquille Griffin not very good. He can take away some bigger bodied receivers. He will not be able to touch Darius Slayton. Shaquille Griffin is just like he's effectively the same as maybe Darius Slay is a good comp at this point. Maybe Shaq Griffin's probably even worse laterally, but Darius Slayton beats Darius Slay every time he plays him, and he's going to beat Shaquille Griffin in this game fairly consistently. On the other edge, I mean, DJ Reed, I actually seen some things I like, and Sterling Shepard's doesn't go crazy, and this matchup is actually reasonable. But that's kind of a tie goes to the offense type thing where I think Sterling Shepard's going to be open enough to be useful. And then in the slate, Ugo Amadi is a terrible coverage player. He plays the run decently, but he just gets lost all the time in coverage. And Golden Tate, while I think at this point is pretty mediocre as a especially separator short, he's going to be good enough to be open in this game. So you're talking about reasonable weapons for the Giants in terms of space, and even Evan Ingram. He's going to be limited. Like he ain't going to go off the way he did last week because Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner are there, but neither of them are like shutdown man guys at all. In fact, Jamal Adams gets really aggressive and gets beat pretty consistently, and Evan Ingram's so fast. There's danger of a long Evan Ingram touchdown or catch or whatever, although that's not something I'm going to bank on. So you talk about then the quarterback. Now this is where you got to tone it down with the Giants because it is still Colt McCoy. Now, I think, and he showed this every time he's played recently, whether it's the Redskins or the Giants last week, that if he's in a fairly comfortable position, he actually can be okay. And I think you're going to see that here. Like I said, the pass rush is not crazy. The Seahawks don't do anything special on defense, and his receivers are going to be open. So you're going to see some ball movement. Now, it's not going to be anything crazy. I'm not going to go like Colt McCoy is still just an overall limiter to the ceiling of his offense, but it's not going to be terrible. And especially with Darius Slayton, I would. There's chances down the field for sure. Now the pressure is enough to be limiting as well. So he's not going to be good. He's just I think going to be okay. So the overall pass game, yeah, I think it's just going to be okay to mediocre. Receivers can really drive, but he's just going to miss throws, misreads, and it's going to keep the ceiling of the offense down. So the last thing, then in the red zone. That's where it gets really bad because I think the Giants are gonna be able to move the ball reasonably between the 20s in this game. But once you get to the red zone, then I mentioned you need certain things to be good in the red zone. I mentioned pretty much every video. You either need a dominant player, a dominant advantage, or really bad opposition. None of which really exist here. The last one maybe really because of Ugo Amadi, but the Seahawks, I mean, they don't like man up a slot corner in the red zone like that. And the Giants receivers at that point, outside of a little bit of Darius Slayton, aren't good enough to win. And also, Colt McCoy just limits all that by himself. So I actually have a point spread of 9-16. I think they're for sure going to score 8 touchdowns in this game at some point. Or they're going to move the ball well enough to kick a reasonable number of field goals. So then you get to the Seahawks offense versus the Giants defense. In terms of injuries on the Seahawks offense, still no Brandon Shell starting right tackle. He's doubtful. I'm just assuming he's not going to play. Damian Lewis starting right guard, questionable. I'm not sure about his status. I think he's going to play. I'm not sure. And Carlos Hyde backup running back, questionable. Don't care. On the Giants side, David Mayo, rotational linebacker, questionable. So first step, we got the offensive line versus the defensive line in the run game. And here it's awful. So the Seahawks are the worst run scheme probably in the NFL, outside of like maybe the Bengals are down there too. And they just blindly move straight forward, and that shit is not going to work here. The Giants front is really good, one of the best in the NFL for sure. And they're going to be losing at the point of attack all the time. The Seahawks are. Ethan Pochage cannot handle the strength of these guys. Damian Lewis and Mike Iupati, they can push like weaker players like pretty notably, but versus similar strength players, they actually just end up losing balance and getting out of the fucking out of the gap that they're supposed to be blocking in all the time. So you're gonna see that here, especially Mike Iupati is real bad about that, and Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence are both gonna be like the real deal of the line of scrimmage in this game. Dalvin Tomlinson too, he's just less of a penetrator. Then on the edges, I mean, Dwayne Brown is okay, but he's a better pass blocker than he's a run blocker. And Cedric Boye, the other tackle, is nuts. He can like if he gets in a double team, he can move guys occasionally, but it's nothing I'm scared of if I'm the Giants at all. And the Giants were edge defenders. I mean, Kyler Fackrell is reasonable. On the other side, if it's they've been changing up who actually plays that other edge a lot. And mostly, I think it's probably going to be Jabal Sheard, who's a bigger bodied guy. I just don't think the Seahawks are going to generate push from the offensive line at any point. And then on the second level, like I mentioned, their run scheme is terrible. So it's not like they make up for that in other areas with misdirection or getting the ball into space well. They're just fucking bad at it. And while the Giants linebackers are bad, Blake Martinez hasn't been quite the disaster this year that he has been in other years. And I like Tate Crowder, the seventh round linebacker who rotates in as of now as their backup. And I really hope that they realize he's a lot better than like Devontae Downs or David Mayo and give him more time. But either way, the linebackers are going to be so free here that I think they're going to be okay. Now, there is chances because, and this is part of the overall run game, the next step here, because Chris Carson's such a good athlete, if he gets into space against these guys, it's similar to last week, what you saw. Is exactly what I said against the Eagles, and I think you'd see that here too. So if he gets in space, there are going to be some issues with actually bringing him down, but it's just not going to happen very often, like barely at all. So there's going to be a couple chunk plays in this game, but on down and down basis, they're not going to be able to run the ball well. So you talk about the pass game. So the pass rush first. So the Giants have like a really high pressure rate, but that is way more a function of the teams they've played than how good they are. Playing in the NFC East with a bunch of like multiple teams on their like third string linemen. So here, I mean, they're going to generate push up the interior, but it's nothing crazy. I like Leonard Williams even as a pass rusher. And I think here he's going to be really useful, but he's not like crazy. He's not Aaron Donald. I would say that because you got to temper expectations for interior rushers. You can get wrapped up in stuff there that doesn't end up really coming true in a game. So then on the edge, Giants edge rushers are just mediocre. Kyler Fackrell I actually think is okay, but Dwayne Brown is going to be clean in this game. I don't think Dwayne Brown is fantastic, but he's way better than all the Giants rushers here. On the other end, though, there's some chances. Cedric Boye, far from perfect, not really a good pass blocker. So you're going to see that between Kyler Fackrell or Jabal Sheard or whoever ends up lining up on him, there's going to be some chances. But again, Giants rushers not good enough for me to be worried about them. So then you talk about the receivers. So here, I'm actually worried's not the right word, but this is something I talked about in my last video, which was true and not true. Which is the Seahawks receivers are just not all that good at separating early in the play. And what happened last week, that was true of Tyler Lockett, which is going to be true to a point here too. But I did underestimate DK Metcalf in that respect a little bit, and more, I think I just overrated Darius Slay at this point. In this game, James Bradbury is a lot better than Darius Slay. And you saw early in the year when he played Allen Robinson, who is like not identical to DK Metcalf, but a fairly reasonable comparison. He was really good. And I think that's going to be the case here now. DK Metcalf is still going to get his. He's good enough too. He's one of those receivers. But between him and Lockett, we'll see. Although on the other end, Isaac Yiadom, Giants' other cornerback, awful. And Tyler Lockett's good enough to beat him consistently. So there's going to be space. And as well in the slot, I mean, they Logan Ryan moves all around for them. I think he's a good player. And they bring in Darnay Holmes, who's bad. And he was bad last week. It just wasn't shown up because of who was playing them against them as quarterback, the Bengals backup, Brandon Allen. So there's really going to be two gigantic holes to attack, and Julian Love, who I think is an okay free safety, is not going to be good enough to make up for it here. So you talk about the quarterback versus the defense, and yeah, Russ is just. He's going to have space. The pass rush isn't enough to cause issues for him, but it is enough for him to find lanes, move around, and create. Their deep safeties aren't good enough to take him away, and that just leads to a lot of success. And that's why I'm very confident that the Seahawks are going to end up winning this game. But I will say, with the overall pass game, I think it's going to be good, but it's not going to be super consistent because James Bradbury can limit DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett is not like a possession driver by himself almost ever. He actually might reach almost that in this game. Like I said, Isaac Adams really bad, but here the Seahawks do so much dumb stuff on offense. You saw it last week; they could have killed the Eagles way worse than they did, but they didn't, and that's what I expected to happen. Because they're just incapable of it. They do too much dumb shit, and that's going to happen here too. So once you get the red zone, I do think they're going to be good. Russell's fantastic in the red zone, and rushing is at least possible. Chris Carson's helpful there, but I only have them at a point spread of 20-27, despite, and that's including them playing against a pretty mediocre offense. They just do too much dumb shit, and once they get up, Pete Carroll insists on like running the ball, and it can get kind of ugly with their offense. Does get ugly, not can. So I have them in 2027. Disclaimer though, if Colt McCoy is a lot worse, like early in the game, you would be able to see that. Then I'm gonna boost the Seahawks up some, just because they get so many chances. But I don't really see them going past the 27 mark. So that's why overall, I think Seahawks money line pretty much guaranteed. But I would take the under because no matter what happens, I don't think the Seahawks are really going to even get into the 30s. And can't imagine that the Giants then make up the difference to get that over 47. So I think the under safe, but there is a chance that the Giants actually do score like 2 touchdowns, in which case I'd be worried, or B, that the Seahawks, I don't know, because they could score like 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, in which case again I'd be like, that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, and that's what though neither of those are guarantees, and the Seahawks just don't blow out teams even if they're bad as a rule. So I would take the Giants plus 10.5, maybe even if it's just like a backdoor end of game field goal or something. So that's Giants Seahawks.